Your Rise Show. I'm Katie Cianci. I'm so excited to be bringing to you this new episode with Gregg Champion, the founder of Startup Recovery. This is a transformational living program, home that he has created, and it's transforming people's lives. And what I love about this episode is he really goes into the vulnerability of his own story of addiction and how he was able to rise above that and now is living with passion and purpose and transforming lives. So enjoy this episode. I also want to share with you, if some of you have just started or you're just in the middle of the series, or maybe you got a chance to watch it, but you want to reconnect with some of the earlier episodes, I will be providing a link in the next day or two. So stay tuned, watch it in your email. I'll be sending you a link to all the other videos that we've already completed so you'll have access. And feel free to email me at info@aloveseed.com or join our Facebook group. And I'll see you in the next episode. Enjoy.
And how we are different is that we provide programming. We have 4 pillars: accountability, community, education, and love. And we want our residents to have those 4 be prominent in every day that they're here. So some of the things that we do that are different are we make sure everyone wakes up at 7 a.m. on a Monday and they go to a 12-step meeting. Because in America, what do we do on Mondays? We go to work. And so here we go to work at Startup Recovery on Mondays. We come back to the house at 8:30 and we do a house meeting. And we do 3 things in the house meeting. We do everybody's recovery, we do everybody's schedule, and then the fun part is who has gripes or notes or suggestions. So if someone's shower's not working or the garbage stinks or whatever. And so it ends up for starting our week bonding. You know, the other components that make us different is we do recovery coaching here. I do the coaching. I coach in 4 lanes. I coach in recovery, career, passion, and legacy. And depending where you're at in your recovery is where we touchstone on those. But all 4 of them are coached here while you're here. The marquee element for us at Startup Recovery is our sober mentors. We have 59 men, 27 women who are coming to the house for fun and for free. And these are captains of industry, Oscar winners, the number one real estate agent in Los Angeles, as well as fashion designers. And what happened with these people is that they messed up a long time ago. They had a train wreck and a plane crash, and they had a bottom around drugs and alcohol. And then out of that recovery, they were able to build incredible lives. And so they sit exactly where we are on a Thursday night. They have dinner with us first, and then our residents sit on the couches, our alumni sit past them, and then they share their experience, strength, and hope. And the cool thing is after the meeting, our residents are able to come up to the sober mentor, get their phone number, ask them to coffee, and that's something that no other place in the country can do. No other place in the country can vouch and say, hey, we bring this quality of person so you can have a mentor both in recovery and in business. This person is not a sponsor, it's someone they can connect with, because what I found in my own recovery was I got sober, and now what? And what happened was the career thing really had to come up, and I became addicted to my career. And that's where we came up with the slogan, shifting addiction to passion. And that's our slogan for Startup Recovery. And lastly, on Friday mornings, we bring in guest coaching. And some people will say, oh, I can't believe you're bringing in guest coaching. They're going to steal your clients. Not the way I see it. I coach in 4 lanes. So the coaches come in, they do fitness, they do nutrition, they do grief, they do conflict resolution. And so we give them access to our residents to teach them those things. And that's from 8:30 to 9:30 every Friday. Because I want new voices to come in here. I want to have a platform where we create almost like superheroes in sobriety. And so we got the best breathwork coach and the best sound bath coach and the best guided meditation coach. And they have access to them. And I think that overall narrative is really what makes Startup Recovery so different, so unique, and really, we're basically becoming game changers in the field of recovery. So that's my little slogan there.
Yeah, well, that's incredible, because that's it seems like you're a visionary of recovery and how we treat addiction. So that's phenomenal. Do you mind sharing how you got here?
Yeah.
You know, where,
So my
your
personal story.
Your
Yeah.
personal story.
I always feel there's a great teacher, doctor named Gabor Mate. He is brilliant, and his main thing is that some pain or some trauma happened early in life that caused you to suppress your feelings. And then when we discover drugs and alcohol, we use that as the solution to hide this stuff. And so for me, my father was killed in a drunk-on-drunk car crash when I was 4.5 years old. And I felt different. I was being raised by a single mom. There was a single car in the driveway. I didn't have a father as a Little League coach. And so I know that was a core belief in me in terms of I feel different. And if I'm going to feel different, I need to suppress that. And so right around puberty, which is for a lot of people, 12 or 13, I took my first drink. I thought it was going to be like James Bond, shaken but not stirred, you know. And what I ended up in the ice plant, puking up carrots from a cocktail party where I was sipping adult drinks. And I had this romantic thing about alcohol, and here I was face down at 12 or 13 years old. And then I tried it again, thinking that there would be a different result. And as you know, that's the insanity of drugs and alcohol. We keep doing it thinking that there's going to be a different result. And so I kept doing that through high school and college and so on. And then what really happened for me is I got my college degree. I got out into the real world, and the real world had promised me that if you go get a college degree, you'll have money, you'll have cars. I was making $19,000 a year. I was still eating top ramen and drinking Mountain Dew, you know, and so what happened was I was working at a TV station late night, and I used to get out at 3 a.m. And what happened was, for a while I didn't have much of a social life, but then I did find friends at 3 a.m. We all have those type of friends that are around at 3 a.m. They end up being lower companions, as we most know. And so what ended up happening from age 22 to 24 is I got arrested for DUIs, getting fights in bars, driving with a suspended license. I even got arrested twice in 24 hours at Mardi Gras. Okay? This is the alcoholic I am, thick-headed. I walk up to this big Irish cop and I say, hey, it's my first time here. What can I actually get in trouble for? And he says to me, don't piss in my streets and don't fight in my streets. So you tell me what 2 things I got arrested for. Pissing in the streets and fighting in the streets. Because when I drink and use, all consequences go away. And so that was arrest number 6. And then I met some lower companions. I got involved in dealing some drugs, shipping marijuana to the East Coast. And that lasted good for a while. There was a nice house I was renting in La Jolla. I had a couple cars. I was only 23 years old. And I thought, okay, this is the shortcut. You know, and what I've learned in addiction is I'm always chasing the shortcut. I remember when I was 9 years old in detention, and I was always in detention. And the teacher would say, I will not talk in class. I want you to write it 200 times. I will not talk in class. And you're supposed to write it, I will not talk in class. But this is how I wrote it. I, will, not talk in class to get it done. But I'm missing the message by not doing it properly. So I was always a shortcut taker. And so when the drug dealing happened, right, I was a shortcut dealer. I'm going to do it a different way that I think I can get away with. And what happened was, I began doing plane trips from San Diego to Boston to Connecticut to DC. And each time I got on that plane, I had to get more wasted because I had such shame behind it. Here was a kid who went to Catholic school, college degree, good family, and I'm a drug dealer? And so it first was like 6 drinks. Then it was 6 drinks and some cocaine. Then it was just cocaine. Then I remember I even dropped acid on one flight. Now I don't know about you, but being on a plane for 6 hours on acid is not a pretty thing. So I end up getting, I end up getting busted for the first time, 50 pounds of pot. I get in front of the judge, and the judge says to me, "Son, I see you're a good kid. What happened?" And I say, "I don't know. I don't know, because Here's the thing is, that's a sober kid in front of the judge, where I'm acting out with the mask of addiction and alcoholism. That's who's actually doing it. And here's what he says. He says, here's what I know, son. If I see you in my courtroom in the next 6 months, I'm going to give the 5 years of prison hanging over your head. So 18 days later, I'm in my car, sports car. I've drank 6 Moosehead. I've had 2 blunts, and I have a couple bindles of Coke on me. And I'm going to the party of the year. Now, let me remind you, all my high school friends have left me. All my college friends have left me. And so all I have is lower companions or myself. And I walk in this party, and I'm a people pleaser by nature. And that people pleasing really happens a lot when I drink and use. And so I walk in the party, and within 10 minutes, this guy comes up and goes, hey, do you have any bumps on you? And I'm like, oh yeah, come on, let's go. And so we go down the stairs, out the door, into my car. I pull out my Duran Duran CD case. This is early 90s. Don't judge me. And I start chopping up some lines. And I put the lines in front of him. To which he puts his San Diego Police Department badge in front of me. And arrests me for drug possession once again. That next morning, Kate, I woke up in the fetal position. I was done. And I just remember, I'm going to prison for 5 years. And so, this voice from the other side of the jail cell says to me, Gregg, there's a better way. And I listen. And it says, Gregg, there's a better way. And I continue to listen. It says, call your mother. Now, I don't know about you, Kate, but I've been arrested twice in 20 days for major charges. The last thing I want to do is call my mother. She's in her early 60s. She's from the greatest generation. But I call her. And what she says to me is, she says, I want you, first of all, she used to call me Gregory. Gregory? And you know how moms always have that name for you? Gregory, I want you to go to church. And so that night I went to church. And during the Mass, it was a 6 o'clock Mass, during the Mass, one of the priests says, hey, we're going to do confessions after church, or after the Mass. And I thought to myself, all right, I'll go do my confession. And here's how sick I am. If I go do my confession, I can go out again. That was my thinking. And so there were 6 priests, 6 different doors, and I chose door number 2. And it's not like The Godfather where you have little math and my name's Pete. You know, you're looking right at a man. He's looking right at you. He had ice blue eyes, gray hair, and obviously the cloak of being a Catholic priest. And he says, son, tell me your sins. And I begin to tell him my sins. I said, Father, when I smoke pot, I show up on Christmas Day on December 27th. When I do cocaine, I date 4 women who have no idea that I'm dating all 4 of them. When I drink, I get in bar fights and I hurt people. And when I do all 3, I fly large amounts of marijuana to the other side of the country. And then he stops me and he says, son, he's like, do you think you have a problem with drugs and alcohol? And I say, no. Because again, I'm so early in this, I just don't know. And then I did what we call the AA pause. I paused for the first time and I said to him, wow, it's funny you asked me that. I go, my stepfather asked me that a few times in high school and college if I had a problem with drugs and alcohol. He's the only other man to ask me that. And I said, my stepfather was a World War II vet. He taught me how to shave my face, tie a tie, open a door for a lady. Those greatest generation things that we know that generation does and teaches. And the best thing about him is that he brought 17 years of AA sobriety into the house. And he said, and the priest says, what was your stepfather's name? And I said, Walt Janicki. He reaches across, grabs my hand and goes, I was Walt Janicki's first sponsor. And right then, when I knew that miracle of that connection happened, I knew it came from a power greater than myself. I knew that I finally had to surrender. And most important, I had to listen to whatever this man was going to say next. And here's what he said. He said, Gregg, your sins don't belong here. I said, they don't. He said, no, they belong 4 blocks up at the Alano Club, and there's an AA meeting starting at 7:30, and I think you should go. And so I carried my sore ass up there, and I went to that meeting, and that was my first meeting. And then what's profound, Kate, is this is before cell phones. There's beepers back in the day. But he gave me his number on a piece of paper, and he said, I want you to come to my office tomorrow morning. And so that morning I call him. I open up the piece of paper, and his name is Father Bill Wilson, which is the same name as the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought to myself, okay, all right, I'm just following your lead here. I'm just following your lead. And so I went and saw Father Bill that morning, and in short, he said this: I want you to do 3 things. I want you to give up drugs and alcohol. I want you to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. I said, that's good. So does the judge. And he's like, I want you to take boxing lessons. And I said, boxing lessons? He's like, yeah, because when you do the first 2, you're going to have so much resentment and anger, you got to put it somewhere. And so I'm a big proponent of exercise. Natural dopamine going off. Go on a hike, a swim, lift weights, take boxing lessons. And so I did all 3 of those things. And before I left, he says, what's your biggest fear? And I said, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail. And he says, well, look, let me show you a math problem. You told me you've gone to jail 8 times in 2 years. Gregg plus drugs and alcohol equals jail. Why don't you take drugs and alcohol out of the equation and see if you go back to jail? And in nearly 25 years of sobriety, I've never been to jail. So I promise anybody, take drugs and alcohol out of the equation, and whatever your version of jail is will cease to exist.
Yeah, so I'm curious, how does someone, a lot of people who are in recovery want to stop.
Yeah.
That's a myth that they don't want to stop.
Right.
Many do. But they just really struggle with stopping using. They know that's the issue. They know that's the core issue to all of their problems that they're having. So what did you do, or what kind of support? What kind of things did you do to help you?
I'm just an old AA guy. I had such fear around going to prison that basically the lawyer and the priest had said to me, hey, you have got to get sober. You've got to prove to the court that this is not who you are. So it was fear, first of all, what grabbed me. Second of all was going to meetings, going to 90 meetings in 90 days and having a community love me in a way I could never love myself. And then doing the work in AA, which was get the garbage out. And so whether it's with a sponsor or a therapist, I had such shame around my childhood. I had such shame around the things I've done to other people and to myself. I had such shame around these crimes that basically I did, that I had to get that out. And so really it was fear, it was community, and then it was get to work on yourself. And I used the 12 steps as a platform to get me there. I do believe that a year sobriety will help you have some clarity. And how you do it is up to you. You could go to rehab, to sober living, to some sort of IOP, and a therapist along the way. But I think everybody's playbook is different. But here's what's funny. If you and I were to make chocolate chip cookies, right, what would you start with in the bowl?
I would start with probably the eggs.
The eggs. So I'll start with milk. What would you add next?
It's been a while since I made chocolate chip cookies, but I would probably add the vanilla.
Okay, you got the vanilla. I'm putting the sugar in. What would you add next?
The flour.
Okay.
And, together.
Right. I'm going to add the chocolate chips. What do we both end up with?
The same thing.
Chocolate chip cookies. So my point is that in recovery, I can be a guy who, my sponsor, meetings, big book, service, right? Or I could be a guy who's service, big book, as long as we use the same ingredients, we always end up with chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, it's true.
And so whatever your playbook is, just make sure you get the ingredients right.
That's great. So what would you say, so you had this journey, you had this one thing in particular that I thought was really phenomenal about your story was that you were in the jail cell and you heard this voice say there's a better way.
Yeah.
have you had anything, how did you know what that was, or did you just follow it instinctively, or did you question it? Because I think there's always this kind of inner voice, or they call it intuition or instinct or a higher power, that can lead us where we need to go, but sometimes we don't listen.
So I've always believed in God. Always believed in God, and from a little boy, it was the old white guy on a cloud with lightning bolts. You know, that was my God. What's really cool about that voice is that I listened because I was at my bottom. I had no other place to go. And so it was a beacon to me, like, okay. And then it was a comforting voice. It was my mother.
Oh, it was your mother.
It was my mother on the phone, not out of judgment, but like, hey, go to church. What she was saying was, go to God. I'm going to go to God. So I go to this church, to which a man of the cloth points me to Alcoholics Anonymous. Which, this is what's really cool. Alcoholics Anonymous is pointing me back to God. And now I have a more of a mature version of God. My version of God is the universe. It's much bigger than me. How do these planets all stay aligned for centuries? Right? How does the water level basically stay the same for centuries? Right? But more importantly, whatever vibration I put out, positive or negative, I'm going to get back. I'll give you an example. Last fall, I gave a homeless woman $100. Her winter shoes were not going to hold up, so she went and bought new boots. Right? The next day, I got a client here for $100,000. That's how it works. That's my God. And so when you bring up intuition, what I feel I got from Alcoholics Anonymous is a gift of intuition. So now that voice resides inside of me to say, hey, do you want to go left or do you want to go right? And the voice always directs me right, because what I can promise you this, when we go against our gut, does it usually turn out good or bad?
Bad.
Right. Right.
It's when we second guess ourselves, that we hear it, whether it's here or here, but then our mind can sometimes get us tripped up on, oh, don't listen to that.
Right.
You should stay.
Or it won't happen again.
Right.
It won't happen again. You know, and that's how I got in trouble with the law. It won't get happening. And again, my sentences end up getting longer and longer. This disease is progressive. So when you keep going with the disease, the consequences are more progressive as well. You know, one last thing about the intuition is that, you know, it says in our 11th step, pray and meditate, right? I didn't start meditating until my 15th year of sobriety, because I thought meditation was for guys with ponytails and tank tops. You know, I just did. Really, I just wasn't. I'm not going to do that. Not to mention I have ADD, and I can only concentrate for 27 seconds. So how could I possibly meditate for 20 minutes? And what happened was, there was a shift for me. And so for my 11th step is I now meditate and then I pray. And I've done that for the last 10 years, and it works. And I use guided meditation. I use Buddhism stuff. I also have a mantra from Transcendental meditation that I also use. And it's just a varying stuff. But what happens for me is it opens up the gate to allow for the prayers to happen. Again, I'm still using the same ingredients, right? But this time, instead of chocolate chips, milk chocolate chocolates, I'm using dark chocolate chips. You know? So the point I'm trying to make is that intuition has been one of my greatest gifts that I discovered in my recovery. It's God speaking to you.
Yeah, it is. And so how do you know that it's, and I'm so happy that you bring up intuition, because I think that's a big part of, resilience in general, but also in how we can follow our purpose. How do you know that it's your true intuition, and how do you know that it's fear talking? You know, sometimes fear can show up in many different ways, and you might think that's your gut instinct, but it's actually your fear talking.
For me, it's really three things. Fear shows up for me when my body temperature raises. I start to sweat underneath my armpits and I'm not doing anything. That's fear. That's how I know it's fear. Then my intuition is that initial quiet thought. Because what happens is fear screams at me. Fear screams at me. you're no good, you should just kill yourself, no one likes you, you're going to fail, right? And intuition says, you know what? You should connect with Kate. You should ask her to come to your house. She'll say yes, you know. And then the last part of it is in terms of it, the more you use it, the more dialed in. Because here's the thing is, I feel people's energy before they even open their mouth. I really do. And that has been acquired over years and decades of being around people. I love people. I think connecting with people is the true gift of what we're supposed to do. And so I can just sit here with you and I know you are a good person. I can feel your vibration. And I hope I'm also vibrating a positive, passionate thing. And then if we do that, then I know it's safe, to which I can give you my authentic self, right? We have a mutual friend that we like, Brene Brown, right?
Yes.
And she says, you know, what's our superpower?
It's our vulnerability.
It's our vulnerability.
Our courage to be vulnerable.
My courage to tell that story about how I met the priest and everything that followed, that preluded that, is I hope someone looks at it and goes, holy shit, that's me. You know? And so, yeah, that's my take on intuition and fear.
That's wonderful. So I also want other people to hear that are watching how you've built this transformational home,
transformational residence,
that you have, and how you start, or how you help people start companies or start their life over, because that's another part of addiction that's difficult, is once you get to that low point and you go through, if you go an inpatient or you do outpatient therapy, how do you recover from that? Because you've lost mostly everything. In some cases you've lost everything, although you don't have to lose everything to get into recovery, but usually that's what happens. So how do you help them rebuild their lives? So
the way it worked for me was my first 2 years of sobriety. My first year of sobriety, I just worked. I taught tennis to kids in the morning. I went to grad school in the afternoon, and I don't recommend this for everybody, but I was a bartender at night, and so I was really busy, too busy to use drugs and alcohol. And then my second year, I moved to Los Angeles, and I got a job as basically a production assistant at one of the networks, and you know, when I was drinking, I would go out on Thursday nights, and I obviously would be hungover on Saturday mornings. Well, now I'm sober, so what am I going to do with those hours? So I remember staying in on Thursday nights, and I make writing or researching or working on scripts. I remember on Saturday mornings, I would go into the office when no one else was around and have access to the computers and printers, and I would work from 8 in the morning to noon. And if you do those things for 52 weeks, you're going to have a new script. You're going to have a painting done. You're going to have, you're going to be halfway through a semester in school. And so really was for me, and again, I had to come up with a slogan down the road, was shifting addiction to passion. I fell in love with the entertainment business, so therefore my passion had shifted to where I just focused on being part of the entertainment business. And so how that got to be here at Startup Recovery was, I was speaking at a 12-step meeting 4 years ago, and I was telling the room that, hey, I got sober in my 20s. I have a very successful career in media and branding. I also teach entrepreneurship at USC. And this woman comes up and goes, you would make a great group facilitator. And I went, hold on a second. I went and grabbed my phone. Group facilitator. I had no idea what a group facilitator was. And she explained what it was. It's someone who comes into a facility and runs a group on a particular topic. And so my topic was entrepreneurship within recovery. And so all of a sudden I began to have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, eventually 6 groups. I began working at other facilities, you know, entrepreneurship and recovery. And lo and behold, in my second year, someone says to me, hey, you need to have a private practice. And so I started taking on private clients. And so it's now time to name the business. So I go to my mentor, Professor Patrick Henry at USC, and I say, hey, I got this business. It's starting to take off. You've been a mentor to me. I go, what should I name it? And he says, Champion, what I know about you is that you know two things really well. You know recovery and startups. Okay? You've been successful in both. And I look at him and I go, yeah, you're right. And all of a sudden he takes the two words and he goes, startup recovery.
There you go. Yeah.
And I go, bam. And then out of that came always getting a mentor, opening doors for people, using the sober network to open up doors. So here's why. I had a young man who I was mentoring. He's like, hey man, I got a felon on my record. This guy's not gonna hire me. I go, the guy's interviewing, he's got 4 felons. You know, what I love about sending people in recovery to other people in recovery is we're forgiving. We're not judgmental. You know, we allow for mistakes. And so when I send somebody in early recovery to go have coffee with this person, it's usually a soft landing pad. That's one of our modalities that we do here, is that networking, that connection of the sober network. And so what happened was, and how we built Startup Recovery, the transformational living was, my business partner, Jeff Van, and I came together, and he says, I want to help you build your business. And I ask all of my residents one question. What do you want to be when you grow up? Okay? And let that inner voice talk, you know? And we go to work on that stuff. So Jeff asked me, he goes, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, well, you can't ask me that question. And what really came up for me is like, I want to bring my coaching business that I learned, that I was teaching in the groups, but also teaching in private class, into a headquarters. And then make that headquarters a global recovery brand. And he goes, all right, let's get to work. And so what we ended up doing was, you know, we looked at 60 houses. We knew we wanted to be in the Palisades on the west side, because in LA, west side AA is the strongest in the country. We know we wanted to cut off our competition in Malibu, you know, by 15 miles, much closer. And we knew we wanted to bring in sound bath, acupuncture, breath work. We knew we wanted to bring in coaching and sober mentors. And all of a sudden, here we are, we're building out this unique platform, right? To, as you said, be visionary in terms of our recovery, and create recovery playbooks for each one of our clients. And so what we've done so far is we've had people go back to college and finish their degrees. We've had people, instead of their parents signing checks for another rehab, sign checks to do a startup. And we've done 10-page pitch decks that we pitch to the parents. The parents goes, that's an investment I can do, and the check comes out. We've had people return back to their law firms, their medical practices, that I've had to write letters to say, this guy I vouch for now. And so, again, we're transformational living. We're trying to transform lives here. But really is, the key element, Kate, is this. We don't take anybody who's not willing to be willing. Because when someone says to me, how have you been able to stay sober almost 25 years? I'm willing to be willing. You know, one of the things I always do, I have a motto, always say yes with boundaries. Because what does no get you? No stops the deal. But yes with boundaries allows for, hey, Kate, can I do an interview with you? Yeah. Yes. How does Wednesday midday work? Great.
Yes.
You know? So I always say yes with boundaries, you know, because boundary setting is very important. You know, one of the things we do here is we create a nice runway for people, a nice flight path, right? And also the recovery is happening here. But what's happening with the families?
Right. Yeah.
You know, the families have not held boundaries. Boundaries have been crossed for decades. And so what happens is the young man or the young woman or the wife or the husband goes back to the family, and it's a hornet's nest. So we always try to work with clinical to be working on with the family as we are working with the client, because this disease of alcoholism and addiction is a family disease. And so I'm just a big proponent that everybody does work, whether it's couples counseling, one-on-one therapy, family counseling, that the solution is there, because everybody has to unpack their backpack of garbage at some point. And so the boundary setting is key for us with our residents.
That's great. And so if someone is interested in accessing your services and this recovery, or actually it's a transformational recovery program, how would they get in contact with you?
Well, I mean, the easiest way is to just go to our website, which is startuprecovery.com. We have videos that show the house, explain our program. We definitely have a list of amenities that we provide. We have the type of person that's suited for this, because we really cater to C-suite executives, high net worth families. We cater to artists and athletes. We cater to failure to launch millennials. I don't like that term, but it seems to be an epidemic. And so, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We're coming up on our 2-year anniversary. And what I can say, Kate, and here's what's really cool, is that we're a new kid on the block, but some of the old kids really like us. We get referred to by Avalon, Sierra Tucson, Meadows, the Guest House, Betty Ford. These are legendary programs who are already referring to us, and we're not even 2 years old yet.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So if you were, another question, just final question, is what would if you can imagine what your future self would say to your present self? Advice? You can imagine, what would that be?
Well, right off the bat, what comes to me is slow down. Slow. I talk fast, I run fast, I eat fast, I think fast. I really got to work on that. That's self-care, and so it would be slow down, smell the roses, enjoy your children, be grateful that I live in the Palisades, from where I was, 24 or 25 years ago, to living in the Palisades with a beautiful wife, gorgeous daughters, wonderful. I have a wonderful working crew and staff. I have a great partner. It's gratitude. It's being able to slow down to understand that my new drug is gratitude.
Okay. Well, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for your time and sharing your story. It was very inspiring.